All right, another week. The Podding with PT podcast.
Podding with PT with this episode 3.
Episode 3.
And we got a special guest with us here today. The Dr. Martinez, the one and only. Great guy. So quick introduction. So this man is probably the most social man I know. Great dance moves.
Okay.
Tearing it up at CSM every time I went. Crazy on the dance floor. Talks to everyone, knows everyone. So as well as he served on the APTA board of directors with myself on the nominating committee. 2 years actually. So this man does it all. And now he's a travel PT. So today we really just want to get your story. We want to share your story with everyone. I feel like it's like pretty inspiring, just like what the things that you've been through and then like your aspirations and your goals. So I think it's gonna be a pretty good conversation.
Take it away.
So go ahead, Gus.
Patrick, you're way too kind, man. All I gotta say is Patrick was a dance mover, man. That man inspired me. I saw him out there, and I was just like, I didn't know a body could move like that. That's all I gotta say. I didn't know a body could move like that.
Should have seen him on test mornings.
Ooh.
Yeah. Before test, it's like I had to hype the people up and went around, gave people a high five, jamming music. Well, I felt bad. People were trying to cram for a test, and I'm just like jamming out right beforehand.
That energy surely died out because by like third semester, this man just came in just in time to take the test.
Hey man, I feel that. I feel that as the semesters progress, they get tougher. But thank you guys for letting me come on and coming to your podcast and everything. I really appreciate it, the opportunity. But to give, I guess, the little lowdown about me. I guess a lot of times it starts off like with the why, right? Like why go into PT? And something that I saw growing up as a Spanish in a Spanish speaking household. My parents are immigrated from Mexico back in the 60s, 70s. And growing up in America, my parents never really knew English, right? They could understand it as years progressed. They could never really speak it. But something that happens with the age group of my parents is that they really don't always trust the healthcare system. So we never really went to doctors, right? Because one thing, living in Altus, Oklahoma, where I was born and raised, there wasn't too many Spanish-speaking healthcare providers. There was language barriers and trust issues with healthcare providers there. So I really didn't go see doctors, right? We had our home remedies. We had like our traditional medicine. So if you don't even go to the doctors, sometimes you don't even hear about PT, right? Until you're like get hurt or something like that. So there was no way I had ever heard about PT growing up. But within Latin culture, there's something called hueseros and sobanderos that translates to like bone massages or bone manipulators. And I always thought it was super cool what they did, right? And I asked one of these guys when I was like 12 years old, I was like, how do I become like you? Right? 12-year-old goes like, how do I like do what you do? And this guy tells me, he says, tienes que nacer con el don de Dios, which translates to, you need to be born with a gift from God. And I'm thinking to myself, 12 years old, what the heck does that even mean? Like,
right.
Yeah, my eyes open.
I mean, that's pretty deep. Yeah. How do you even respond to that? I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's a very hard, thing to do. You get this and that, so whatever. But I still thought it was very cool. I was very interested, but I was shot down, right? Like that was a shutdown. That was a key memory that I have in my head. Anyways, fast forward, I get to the age of 22, right? So I graduated high school at 18. Didn't do anything in college, or hadn't gone to college. I didn't do anything for 4 years, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, which was really good for me in my situation, not going straight to school. But about the age of 22, my late, yeah, a family friend comes and visits my brother, and he's a student of physical therapy at the time. His name is Narain. He's from India, and funny guy, man. He got me into Punjabi music as a younger one. But he told me about what he was doing, this and that, about PT, and I told myself, all right, like, let me check this out. Like, this is kind of the stuff, what he was saying were things I remember seeing, right? Okay. So I go to the hospital, start observing there. Then they offer me a job to be one of their techs. And during that time, I saw what they did as PTs, that hands-on approach, and much more, right? More than just trying to like help with muscle tissue or trying to adjust individuals, but also what it looked like in a hospital setting, what it looked like in a pediatric setting, what that looked like for after surgeries, what was the knowledge behind that, the theories behind that, what it looked for patients who've gone to pneumonia, tuberculosis, gunshot wounds, just these different things, going through dementia are things that I saw as a tech, right? And I was like, wow, this really encompasses a lot more than I saw as a kid, right? So, and it gave me the hope, oh, you can actually study for this as well. Now, I'm not saying people don't have gifts and things of that sort, but it wasn't now the point where it's like, you got to be born with a gift from God. It was like, no, there's a path, there's a way to get there. And here we go. But when I first looked into college, I never really thought that I could go to the doctorate of physical therapy school. My parents, they only went to like fourth grade. My oldest siblings, some of them did go to college, and some graduated with their bachelors and things like that. But I was the baby. But honestly, I was just like, man, if I just become a PTA, and I have nothing against PTAs, I'm not saying like don't do that route. If that's the route you want to go, definitely go. I know some awesome PTAs, and I've worked with them, and they've taught me so much through my clinical rotations, and through working with them side by side, in the field. But to me, and I tell others, is that the hardest thing for me to graduate with my doctorate of physical therapy school, or even to get into physical therapy school, the hardest part wasn't getting there. The hardest part wasn't applying. The hardest part wasn't getting my bachelor's. They were tough, but that wasn't the hardest. The hardest thing for me was believing that I could do that. Like that was even like possible, right? Because I said to myself, if I get an associate's with being a PTA or potentially associate bachelor's, right, as many as some PTAs do, then I can help set up my kids to go do something else, right? But it wasn't until a professor came and told me in my junior college, he came up to me and we were talking, and he's like, Gus, he's like, he called me to his office for whatever reason. I can't even remember why, but he's just called me in, and he's like, Gus, so you want to go to PTA school, but why not go to, doctor of physical therapy school? And I don't remember what I said, but all I remember was the why not. And that's something that I hope the listeners really take from this. If anything you're going to take from this conversation is why not? Do it. What you got to think about, what's the best that can happen. That's the best advice I've ever gotten for any situation. And the worst advice that I've ever heard is, just be realistic. So why not? Why not go do that? And here we are now. And because of that professor telling me those words, and helping me get over that hump of believing in myself, that made all the difference. That has definitely brought me experiences that I've never thought were going to be possible.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
That's a great story. But just trying to dived in a little deeper, when did you have this conversation? Kind of like what age, and like what did you already start taking college classes at this point, or?
Yeah, so when I had that conversation about the why not, that was I was already in my JUCO, and that was probably I was there for 2 years, so 4 semesters. That was probably my third semester, my early third semester, because I was either applying for PTA school or in the next cycle for it was applying, getting ready for PTA school, and I was asking for a letter of recommendation. And he came down and dropped that knowledge on me around that time. So I think now I remember, yeah, it was for me to get that letter of rec, and then we had that combo. So yeah, so I guess I was like 23 at the time or so.
So that means you had to like go through more schooling in order just to even apply for DPT school.
Jeez.
Yeah, so then now I had to make a game plan of okay, because I was just going to do that associates, get my 2 years there, and then apply for PTA school. That was because just kind of the way it was set up in my area. That's kind of the route people usually took for it. And just what was available. It was a 1-year program, but they wanted your prereqs already done before. So that way the 1-year PTA program was just consistently just PTA courses. But I know there's different setups for different areas. But yeah, then I was like, all right, what do I need to do to get a bachelor's, and what am I going to get a bachelor's in? And what the heck is the GRE?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I avoided that one. I didn't even take that.
Bro, that test made me cry. I ain't gonna lie, man. I walked out of that sucker.
My gosh. I think my question for you, so you kind of talked about you didn't go to college right away out of high school. What was like your motive for not going yet?
Man, I was really involved with my local church at the time. I didn't have a real sense of direction of what I wanted to study. And I was just really focused on the religious aspect of things at the time. And I didn't know. I really didn't know. There was times I was thinking, well, maybe I'll do missionary work or something like that. But then, I started saying I gotta, work and help my family and things like that. And I knew I wanted it to do something that was still hands-on. I always had that in mind growing up still, about the thing I heard as a kid. It never really left me. But I just didn't know how to find it. Right. And maybe I didn't do enough searching. So, but finally the time came where kind of these pieces just kind of came together gradually. It definitely wasn't all at one time. But I know in those years, and something I've told parents when talking to groups of parents and students that are going off into, their kids going from high school to college, is that I tell them that sometimes it's good to wait. That's not everybody's situation, of course. But in my case, I think if I would have gone to college right away, I would have played a lot of video games and partied and stuff like that. And I still do that now, but I got priorities, right? First, get your stuff done, then go have fun. And I don't know if I would.
That sense of direction, you know why you're there and what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would have been as disciplined, man. For me, it was good. For me, it was a good thing, and kind of grow up, be a little mature, since I was the baby of the family. I think it was helpful for me. For others, maybe not so much.
I think that's kind of an interesting, I feel route that you took, because I've seen that a lot of times with people where they tell you don't go to college if you don't know what you want to do. So that's a great example. It's you don't really know what you want to do. Don't go to college because everybody else is going for 4 years and just play video games, go out party, all that type of stuff. I think that's pretty cool. At what point? So I think you said it was your friend who was a student that did it. What kind of was the thing that sent you over? Was it just that conversation with him, or was there something else too?
So it was my brother's friend. So my brother, he's that brother that I have, he's about 16, 17 years older than me. So between me and my family, I'm the youngest, but the second youngest between me and her, 11 years apart. and the oldest is 18 years apart. So I say I was an accident. My mom denies it. My dad denies it. but I clown around with it, right? But no, apparently she says I was on purpose, and they wanted another baby, but because I was so big and such a C-section baby, they said no more babies. That's what the doctor said. My mother, she was in her mid-30s, late 30s, so probably for the better. So he, it's funny, man, because like the way he met my brother, this PT, who's a PT now, he works in, I believe is in Kansas right now. My brother was a car mechanic at that time, right? Worked for Toyota. Somehow he ended up in Altus driving from somewhere, needed his car fixed, stopped at Toyota, and he liked to go in the back and talk with the mechanics and everything. And somehow him and my brother like kicked it off. And after time, like he would come back and only have my brother fix his car, because he was going to school in Kansas, and he would come down to Oklahoma to only have my brother fix his car because he trusted my brother. And because of that, they developed a friendship relationship. And then he would just come to visit just to visit. And one of those conversations that I was like now figuring out, like, hey, I need to do something. I need to like work and stuff, and something to like help provide other than just like, the career wise. He was going through PT school, and then my niece, who's 4 years younger than me, that's my brother's daughter. She actually was about to graduate high school. So she was trying to figure out things. So in that conversation, he kind of sat us down, told us about what he was doing in PT school, showed us videos of surgeries that he observed and things like that, and started like just giving me that idea of going to PT and then go observe, right? Like that was his thing, like, hey, go observe at your local hospital, see what you see. And that's where, again, I started seeing those things I saw as a kid growing up when we would go to these sobanderos and meseros, and see even more of what PT does, other than just, I guess the massagist or maybe bone manipulator concept.
Yeah, I think it's like a good idea. Like as PTs or even as people, we don't know the impact that we can have on one another. It's like even just telling people what you do and why you do it can be enough to like looking to start their career in something. That's awesome. But I want to continue along with your story. And so how old are you when you applied to or started PT school, and kind of like how was that experience?
So I think I was 26 when I got into PT school, because I graduated when I was 29, and now I've recently turned 30. So I'm pretty sure I was 26. But of course, applying is like a year process, right? If you don't procrastinate. I procrastinated and definitely took that GRE a month before.
Yep.
Or like a week, like a month before, but enough for it to be said. So it'd be like a week.
Buffer, a week buffer.
Yeah, the week buffer, right? But sometimes those things even take longer. But anyways, yeah, man, moment of truth application, taking that GRE, taking all the papers, writing your what's it called, the entry letter, or
that essay thing.
Yeah, the essay thing that you have to send to the school through, the PT, what was PTCA?
PTCAS.
Yeah. I remember I had my advisor in my four-year university. I gave her my form, and I forgot, the question was something about like, why are you trying to go to PT school or something like that. I forgot what the prompt was, but I remember I gave her my application, and she came back to me and she's like, you need to rewrite this. Like, this is yeah. She's like, this is not you. This is not talking about who you are. You're just writing, you're just answering the question. You need to put you into the question. You need to talk about you. And I, Dr. McGrain, I love her so much. She did a lot. She helped continue that belief in me after my JUCO advisor named Bruce, helped instill. And I think that's important to know, when you're on this journey for whatever it is, you have people, you have those people around you and many others that help you. And I haven't gotten to this point because I came alone because of my own strength and my own belief in myself. Sometimes you don't believe in yourself, so you have to let the belief of others really push you forward, right? And that's something I've had to learn. But she said you got to write about yourself, like put you in that. And so I rewrote it with that idea, and it was a lot better, definitely a lot better. I don't know if I still have that paper at all, but definitely talked just about the whole journey, right? That I've kind of explained, I guess, in this podcast already. But it was funny because I was applying to Texas, right? And Texas was like, their applications were like due in like in like August, and I really wasn't looking at the stuff till like September.
I was
been there before.
like, oh, missed that one.
Because I looked at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was like February, late January, early February. So I was like, yeah, everybody else should be the same, right? No, that was not the case. So definitely my bad. That was a mistake. So but it worked out at the end. But I do remember waiting for that freaking letter to come through and seeing other classmates from my program get letters, dude, and I didn't get one on the first wave. So I was like, shoot, what's happening, right? Like that first week, so my classmates that I knew from my university were getting it, and I wasn't, and that was nerve-wracking. But then finally I got my letter the next week, so I was okay during spring break. So it was a very, very great spring break when I saw
celebratory.
when I saw both schools that I'd applied for were like, yay, come through. So I was like, sweet, now I can choose. I got a good problem. But then changing to the city life, right? I've always been from small towns. Altus is a small, Weatherford, or my 4-year university where I got my bachelor's, is a small town, and now headed to the Oklahoma City life, man. And Oklahoma City is not one of the biggest cities, but it's definitely not a small town either. So that was interesting to adapt to this new type of rhythm that exists in the city, and just dealing with traffic. That sucked. That really sucked.
What school did you go to? Is it University of Oklahoma?
So my JUCO was in Altus, called Western Oklahoma State College. I really encourage people to look at JUCOs, man. Your comp one, and that, JUCO is a same comp one usually that you'll take at a 4-year university for partial of the price and less of the headache. But then after I got my associates there, I went to SWOSU, which is Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford, Oklahoma. That's where I got my bachelor's in biology, minored in Spanish to make it easier for me. and then went to the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center in OKC. So there's OU Norman, OU Health Science Center, and then OU Tulsa. So they have 3 campuses. But in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, they have healthcare programs, and the Oklahoma City campus is where they have the most different variety of healthcare programs. But Tulsa has a few, and then OU Norman is a lot of the academics, bachelor's, and graduate studies and things like that, masters and doctorates of there. But the medical stuff usually consists in OKC and then Tulsa.
So I guess take us through, you get into PT school now, because I know big thing that kind of we had in common probably with you, one, just the application, because I really shit the bed on the application, because I ended up only being able to apply to like 3 schools because of how late I was. Yeah. And then kind of like you were saying, just like, why not me? Like, what was your initial take? Because my initial take was like, I am not nearly as smart as these people here.
Like initial take when I got there?
Yeah, like once you started going to PT school, you got the orientation, your first.
Bro, I did not belong there. Bro, it was tough, man. And more than anything, like I think I have in good way and bad way. I tend to stick out. I'm really loud. I'm extroverted, and some people don't really like that, especially when they come to get to know you at the very get-go. And I felt like just over time, I've had to learn how to dial things down, right? When it comes to like code switching. So I've had to learn to change things up, because if I come off with my strong personality from the get-go, that turns a lot of people away. And part of it, I think, is a lot of that personality I have comes from being Hispanic, and what I learned in the Hispanic community, and how you come across people that you just meet. You say hi to everybody, you say goodbye to everybody. You know, you're kind of loud, this and that. Now, not all Hispanics, I'm not saying the stereotype is for everyone, but there is that kind of, I would say, warmth. I do feel there's a difference. There's a warmth to it, the jokingness, and going into my PT program that consisted mostly of Caucasians, more females than males, having a handful of individuals who, from minority backgrounds, it was like, oh, this is going to be the people I'm with for the next 3 years. I need to like watch what I say and how I do things, and be careful from that cultural standpoint, right? Because I know in the past that's like upset people. So I've had to learn how to adapt and ease people into my personality. I say, I gotta give you an appetizer before I can give you the entree and the dessert. And so that's something that had to happen. But then when it came to like the knowledge, bro, I was just like, man, these people are really smart. Like they
right?
Facts.
Like I stepped in, then I was like, I am not prepared for this.
Not in the slightest.
So I remember so I passed anatomy. I was like, God, that was, and it was so crazy because that's like, we had one class, which is an anatomy lab and lecture, and we had some online class that wasn't crazy, but that first semester is just so new to you, right? And everybody's telling you like, study 8 hours a day or like 12 hours a day and go to sleep for 6 hours and wake up and at it again for like really one class and that other online class that we had. And I was getting drained, guys. Like that shit was drainful, man, to kind of go on, because I wasn't being me. Me was, yes, study. You were working, you were studying, you were out doing extracurricular activities, you were helping with the Hispanic community. And I wasn't doing any of that. I was study and go home, eat, study, go home, and try to exercise when I could. So my mental health was definitely starting to deteriorate. And 1 month into PT school, I was really thinking of quitting the bad boy. One thing, because I was like, this is just another level of like, what is all that's going on? And just everything shifting, right? So something that and then finally I passed that semester. And then my next semester, now we have like 6 classes all of a sudden. Now I'm like, damn, they done put this 3 times harder. And I
gave you a tease.
They turned it up a little now. Like, oh.
Yeah, man. They went from preheat to toasty. But there was one class, man, that for my first test after anatomy, when we had this like 6 different classes, like I failed. And it was a measurements class, right? Like analytical data and like,
oh my god, it's like a research course.
Yes, it was a research course, and I failed that first test. And I said, dude, I don't know if I belong here. I was like, damn, we got another test coming up, and it's upper extremity orthopedics. Like, let's see how I do on that. And I got like an 84 on that, and I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm not great with data, but I can get the other stuff. But it's also like, I think there is a lot more structure that had to go in PT school. when it came to studying and things like that, and adapting, than what I had to do like in undergrad. To learn theories, to get all that information that I needed, and how to like pick up what these professors wanted us to learn, because sometimes I would study and that would never be on the test. But what also helped was something that I figured out that first semester, and this kind of like rolls into why I got involved and got to serve with Patrick on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. Was I remember 1 month into PT school, when I was having my breakdown, I wake up midnight on the toilet with my cell phone, right? Because that's just how it is.
That's where you do your best thinking.
Scrolling through social media, and an email pops up on my phone, APTA blog post, and for the students, right? And I click into it, I read it, and it talked about handing off, or was it handing off the relay stick, something like that, like the marathon or something like that. But it was actually a prior Student Assembly Board of Director talking about how she felt when she got into PT school, and how she was feeling burned out, and how she didn't feel like she belonged, right? She felt like imposter syndrome. And her story and what helped her get out of those things was something similar that I was going through, right? She was very involved in undergrad, worked and did school and was juggling things, but was happy, right? And was able to keep things. But same advice was just study, go home and study, right? Sleep and study. And that was messing with her too. So she decided to branch out and go to conferences and things like that and get involved. And I took that advice and that kind of helped me start juggling things again, because I think one thing I've learned about myself is that I can get bored very easily if I just stick to like a certain routine. I gotta spice it up, and it might add stress, but it will decrease burnout, and just kind of help keep my mind more alive. Mm-hmm. And so that helped. It's okay, because a lot of people and a lot of my classmates got to study. And for some people, that's what they need. For me, no, I needed the diversity. I needed a change up. I needed to get back involved, because then I could really concentrate my time when I needed to study. I could really focus on studying, because I had done some other things throughout the day or whatever, right? And just help alleviate some of that mindful tension.
Yeah, you talked about something I think is pretty important. I feel like just to highlight, and something that we kind of went through, like that code switching thing, because I know for a fact I did not talk the same in class the way I would talk outside of class. And just like that added pressure of not only do you have to be, I feel like, smart to be in PT school, but also you have to now act on your best behavior. So now it's like two things. It's like I'm not being myself because I don't have my routine, but now I'm also just not my same like fun-loving person, because I feel like what I say might be judged, it might be taken the wrong way, something like that.
Yeah, and then for me also, like moving from Arkansas to Connecticut, I was like, all right, are the sayings the same? Like, look, did we watch the same things growing up? So I was like, all right, let me just like kind of just tone myself down, and like, all right, let me just fill out the people. All right, then I find myself like throwing out some things here and there. I was like,
some feelers.
Yeah, like, do they catch the joke? Oh no. So like, even still, like I think it's still tough. Like, even like working now, I'm starting to feel like more myself, but it's still like, oof, like, I just had this conversation, like, do I even like start wearing my earrings again or things like that? Because it's like, especially on initial evals, it's like, are they going to be comfortable with that? Because like, you don't know what like the people around or how they're going to feel. You don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, or like because we're in the business of customer service, like you want to put your best foot forward every single time. So it's like, it's tough kind of find that balance, but yet still not diminishing yourself. And then now you're stressing yourself out thinking about code switching or like, all right, toning it down for others, but still wanting to be yourself and give the great care. I feel like it's a tough balance.
No, and I feel like you have to find those outlets, right? And that's what I had to find, man. By getting involved in like extracurricular activities through my schooling and stuff, like I was able to. I always found something in the Hispanic world to do, right? Like undergrad, it was a Hispanic American Student Association. When I got to grad school, they had the Hispanic American Latino organization, or vice versa. Halo over here, Haas over here. But anyways, so those were like opportunities I made to like wanted to get involved in, because that's where, one thing, there's very few Hispanics and minorities just in general in healthcare, right? And I can speak from a Hispanic point of view from what I saw, my experiences being in Oklahoma, from Altus to Weatherford to OKC in my years. And there's few of us, but there's a lot of people who do enjoy the culture and things like that and appreciate the differences and are okay with it. And through those organizations, like that helped me find those individuals. So at these meetings and events, I could be myself. I could talk the way I wanted to talk. I could play the music I wanted to play, which brings me to a memory. Back in undergrad, I'd go to parties, right? And part of the code switching concept, but I would play Latin music at these parties, right? The guys would hate it. A lot of, Caucasian guys, a lot of, folks, city and country life, but a lot of country. It was more of a rural university. And they wouldn't let me play music anymore because they couldn't dance and I would be dancing with all the girls.
Oh, ladies man, smooth operator.
Yeah, because girls had the natural rhythm, the guys didn't. Anyways, so they stopped. They're like, Gus comes, no, you can't play music. No, you can't. All right, so I had to learn two-step, right? So I learned two-step. Now I was two-stepping with the girls. And still a lot of the guys still couldn't dance, so it didn't, you weren't going to stop me from having fun. But because of that experience, and something that I've tried to push forward even till now, is teaching dance to both males and females, right? Because this is my way of fighting back at the system for something that I thought was like, I don't want to take over the whole radio. Like I don't want to like do all the songs, but not even one song. Like, come on, man, like that's not cool. And I've also seen important, and to me, music's always been important because it's this expression of how people think, how people see life, how what words are there, what stories are related through those songs and music, and where people come from with that, right? There's a lot of history that I feel comes to music and represents individuals. Well, maybe not all, but that's just my view of how I see music, and it's been important. But because of music, how it changes from one language to another, how those rhythms change, show me that we're different. We are different from our ethnic groups and things like that, and how those backgrounds and experiences change us to be who we are. Because the music that we have is impactful in that sense, I say it. And even how we speak our languages and tell our jokes and tell our stories. I feel like you can get a lot of that from how music, what comes in from music, and from my perspective, of course. Not saying that I'm right, because what the heck do I really know? But that's what I started incorporating undergrad, and then started doing that in PT school with that Hispanic organization. Started doing dance lessons. One thing, it was a good de-stressor, good movement.
There you go.
But also help build that community, right, of those who were into something similar and things of that sort, so like teaching salsa, bachata, things like that. And even now, after graduating, and working with the Fisio Spanish Speaking Network and bringing that, we recently had a meeting where we did salsa dancing. We had a Colombian PT student who is a dance instructor in Colombia, actually do lessons and stuff. So we'll upload those to YouTube for others to see. But that escape, those organizations have been my way to be who I really want to be, right? And communicate the way I want, because I didn't meet many people that look like me or could talk like me or understood a lot of those cultural things. And I had to, for I don't mean this in any derogatory way, but I had to learn to be white a lot of the times, and how to speak and compose myself and say things I needed to say, in order to get where places I wanted to be, right? Because I knew what had to happen since I was in grade school, right? I learned how to play that game, and have gotten better at it. So it's tough, man. It's tough that you have to play the game, and I guess I can get it. People like being comfortable. They like knowing what's around them and knowing those things around them. Like most of my friends in PT school will never understand what's it like to have their parents be illegal immigrants and understand running across the border, having family getting worried about, ICE or immigration coming through, or understanding what it's not to be in a country where you don't know the language, or to understand what's it like, to be, in my case, I had to interpret documents from my parents as a kid that were legal documents, healthcare documents, which a lot of my counterparts never had to worry about because their parents could read English. They never had to read the letter that came from the law office, or the bills that were getting, oh, you're late or getting closed, to interpret that to your parents. You never had to worry about that for a lot of my classmates, but I did. I had to read those bills. I had to read those letters, and then I had to be a lawyer. I had to be a doctor. Well, oh, I don't understand what that says. Oh, don't you know English, Gustavo? Right? And I still don't know how to read legal documents. So only imagine.
Like, who does though? Like,
Honestly,
really? But yeah, that's a lot of pressure. And expecting. I know for me, it's like going to PT school, like everyone's like looking up to you at this point, especially coming from like a small town in Arkansas. Everybody's like, oh, I was like, oh, you're going to be a doctor. Like, you're getting your doctorate. Oh, that's a big step. Like, that everybody's like, you're kind of like the spotlight feels like that spotlight is on you. So it's like, whenever I failed my first test, I was like, shit, you know what? If I have to go home and I like not make it through the program, everybody's like, damn, we really thought he could do it. He was gonna be the one. If there was gonna be anyone, he could do it. So it's like that pressure just like on you. Like everyone wants to see you succeed. And it's like, all right. And then like they're telling other people about you, like, oh, like he was able to leave this community because and do something, or like he's out in Connecticut, like he's moving around. It's like that's a lot of pressure that a lot of people around you just like kind of just don't understand. Like everybody has like something, and it's tough. Like you don't see it, what other people, but like everybody just has this pressure. Especially, I feel like being a minority, there's things coming with it that other people just don't understand or don't have to go through.
And it's like the majority of, and I look at it as a majority, like all my professors, no, not all of them, most of them were individuals with, Caucasian backgrounds and so forth. And I'm not saying that because you're white, you don't have problems that happen in life.
Right.
There's things that I've had, various friends who are Caucasian, American descent have had some terrible things happen in their lives. And I'm just like, shit, like that's, wow. But I do know that they don't, that in some levels it's you can't understand somebody if you don't know what they've also gone through, right, and experience, and unfortunately through history, the color of our skin, the way we speak, the music we listen to, the way we talk, we could still speak the same language, but the way we speak it can isolate us and have us go down different paths. If you have an accent, that can be good or bad depending on who's around. So it's just another thing to worry about, I guess, unfortunately. But everyone navigates it and finds their way, I suppose, even as you guys. I'm sure your guys' experience through school and life. But that's why I found Fisio Spanish Speaking Network for a PT purpose, because I needed to find that community when I was going through some really tough times, especially my last semester of PT school, and find other Spanish speaking Hispanic, Latinos, Latinx, or Latine individuals that had gone through those things, right? And it was very comforting, because even though I had my professors and classmates who I would tell these problems to, it wasn't the same until I talked with someone who had gone through it similarly, who was from a similar cultural background. And those words hit different, because I felt like they understood better, and it sounded, or they had gone through something similar as well, being from the same ethnic background. So I think inclusivity and finding people who look like you and have similar backgrounds, even though we're not the same, is important, and is a safe space. And where you can be you, man. It sucks having to put up a face. It can get exhausting. But yeah.
Yeah. So just continuing, I do have a question of, so now that you've made it through school, now travel therapist, how's that experience now transitioning into the working world and then moving away?
So travel therapy, my first assignment, my first contract has been really good. I've really had a good experience with my first job. I know people were like, oh, you get sent to bad places, you won't have mentorship. But I've had good mentorship. I've had good advice from people who have been in the travel world for like 10 plus years, like Jess from Wanderlust PTs. She helped me when I first went to my first conference as a first year, and I kept in touch, followed her on social media, and used her resources and her advice, and got on phone calls with her on how to figure out how to choose good spots, right? And who to have as a recruiter. And currently right now, I'm doing acute care. And I've recently extended my contract now to mid-April here in Cottonwood, Arizona, because it's been a really good experience, and learning from a solid group of therapists that are there that need help. And one thing that I've seen, at least in my first experience on this rotation, is that everyone's been very grateful that I'm there, because they need help, because there's not enough therapists to help with the load, especially going through these COVID times and just trying to provide adequate care for patients, with movement and so forth, during these pandemic times, and just other things that happen in the hospital on top of the pandemic, right? On top of just having COVID. So another thing is adapting. I was very fortunate to find housing, and there's different apps and stuff, but I actually used Facebook groups for this area, and was able to link up with an individual here, because it's very, very hard in this small town to find housing, because it's so touristy. And people, the people locally are saying a lot of Californians are coming through and buying up property for Airbnbs. So, so the housing market is skyrocketed. Because Sedona, super, like, very nice area. Flagstaff, Phoenix, and here it's just very nice. Living 4,000 feet, elevation, in the mountainous area. A lot of tourism in this town. So, people are just coming for 2-3 week stays, right? So very interesting dynamic with the housing and locals, and things are changing. But I think housing was a rough, right? Like, you're gonna have a new roommate. What are you coming into? I remember being nervous, like, are people gonna like me? Like, do I really know what I'm doing? Like, but a lot of these jobs that are for travelers are also for new grads. Like, they would take a new grad on the spot, right? And that's what they're looking for as well, somebody to be here more for a longer permanent time. So whatever you do as a traveler, even as a new grad, just know that that's still a new grad job that these companies are willing to take a new grad for. But you do have to do your research if you want to do travel. Right questions to ask when you're interviewing, because you don't let them just interview you. You need to interview them. Why do they need you? How long have they needed a therapist? Why hasn't there been a therapist, there for whatever reason? Have you had travelers in the past? How long has your longest traveler been there, or therapist been there, right? How many of them are there? But these are questions I got from people who've done this for like 10 plus years, because I went to go seek those mentors out. So it's definitely, don't go into traveling, just jump into it. There's a lot of resources out there, a lot of, PTs out there giving out resources and informations. And, I have limited information, but I can at least guide people to the right stuff. But it's been fun, man. And one thing I got into traveling too was because my overall goal, my theme is to help the Spanish speaking community. And I really want to help with building policy, not here just in the States, but also in Latin America, with helping the PT profession grow and policy, because it doesn't matter what you know, it doesn't matter how good your technique is. If it's not in policy, no, it doesn't matter. We can say PT is the best thing in the world, we can find this new technique and do this and that, but if it's not written in law, as we've seen, currently we see it, Medicare and what's happening in Congress and stuff, no, it's not going to work. You need those policies written in place. So what I'm trying to do currently with Travel PT is one thing, make some money. Got to pay them, got to build capital to help make money moves, because loans suck. And I got to help support my parents. My parents were, again, immigrants, they had no idea on savings and anything like that. So I know I'll have to help with that. But also how to build generational wealth. And also learn what different things happen in different settings. Because in Latin America, you'll find like there's not really like, nursing homes and things of that sort, right? Which can be useful, or the concepts can be, or what therapeutic practices we do here are not necessarily happening in Latin America, right? Because of policy and so forth. And what I tell people when it comes to supporting our advocacy efforts, I say, if you want to look where we would be without APTA and those who've done a lot in advocacy, just go next door to Mexico, go to Peru, go to Nicaragua, go to Venezuela, go see where the PT profession is there, go see the state it's in and how they're trying to strive to improve, because they haven't had the years of push. And of course, we can always say things get better, but but people are trying hard and have been trying hard. And to those who say, let's make things better, do this better, do this, well, then you do it. Since you're so passionate about it, like, get your butt on it, instead of just criticizing. But anyway, this is a side note. So what I want to learn is do acute care, go to SNFs, go to acute rehabs, just try different settings so I can get my head in these places. So as I pursue this quest I have of helping leaders in other countries that are Spanish speaking go into policy, right, and talk to their legislators, because if I go to, like, for say Peru and talk to their legislators, they're not going to care about me. I'm not Peruvian. My vote doesn't count. What the hell do I have?
Right.
But I can help and empower those with knowledge in Peru who are citizens there. Hey, these are things that PT's doing. This is the research we have in the States. This is, I can translate this for you, or we can have people officially translate it, however that needs to be. So you can have data, right? So you can have that information, so you can help make and build these relationships with your legislators and at least provide information for them so they can see. And that's part of the goal. Part of the bigger goal overall, but the theme goes back to really help that Spanish speaking community, because I feel, at least for me, I feel indebted. My parents were very fortunate to make it to this country, and I was very fortunate to be born here and have the opportunities I have. And I'm very happy about that. And but not everybody had those things. And there was something that we actually read in class one day that really stuck me when I said I I did start looking at things just beyond the United States when it comes to the Spanish speaking community. We were reading about in South Africa, this group of therapists had gotten an electric wheelchair for a family down in, and it was in Peru. And the author said it was a good thing what these therapists did, but it was feeding a bottomless pit. And what he meant by that was, you're just giving things, here you go, use this, but you're not helping train people. You're not helping educate people to help themselves and try to provide that true impact, right? The wheelchair was a great idea, but are you going to help people in that community learn and things like that? And people that I look to and seen in the PT community doing things like that are like people from, Josh D'Angelo, Ifosa, who are, with, Move Together and things like that, what they've built clinics and trying to do substantial change in countries and places, that impact that makes, right? So right now I'm on the adventure, meeting new people, making new friends. Travel just is given a lot of input, from financial to goal orientation to social aspect of just getting to network and connect and see how things are done differently in different parts of the country. So we'll see where my journey goes after this contract, because I think it's going to start getting hot, so I need to start moving up north.
So before we wrap it up, I just want to say Gus has, and when we were on the board of directors together, student assembly board of directors together, he gave me and Teo Start With Why. Like he sent us a book, and I feel like starting there, like knowing why, what's your direction, what's your path, and just like, and using that to lead your to make your decisions has been like very monumental in me. So I was like, all right, I want to travel. I want to kind of be the best PT I can be. Well, when I graduate, moved to California, travel check.
Yeah.
So like knowing your why and like what you're trying to do, it just helps you make that decision. And Gus just knowledge, wisdom beyond his years. And so it's just just been very helpful in that process of me just growing as an individual. I appreciate you, sir.
No, man, I appreciate you too, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. And Patrick, you talk me up too much, man. But you are a voice of wisdom to those listening. Patrick is whenever I get in like trying to figure out stuff, Patrick would just be like, "All right, guys, chill out." Teo, guys, this is what we need to do. Me and Teo would go 10 minutes not fighting, but discussing about something. Patrick's like, all right, Patrick, what do you think? This is how we do it. Or, you know what, Patrick, you're right. Like we wasted 10, 15 minutes of a conversation.
What I realized,
your logic.
Gus, he thinks about everything, and he was like, all right, I want to do this, and this. I was like, all right, but first we can't do none of that unless we do this one thing right here. And like, let's start with this one thing first and then worry about the rest later. that type of deal.
Just slow it down.
Yeah, look, what you guys are talking about is great, but we got really back down.
For sure, man.
Yeah, but thanks for coming on, sharing your story. I know it's not always easy to talk about those types of things and those challenges. So thank you. Appreciate that.
No, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to do so. And what you guys are trying to do with this podcast and trying to get from others, man. I think that's awesome. Keep it up, guys. You guys are helping the multitudes.
And any how can people reach you if they got any questions, or do you have any links to share?
Of course. So my Twitter is Gustavo K Martinez or KMTZ. Find me on there. Gus Martinez on Facebook, Instagram. I think it's either Gus KMTZ or it's Gustavo KMTZ. It's one of those two. And also check out, if you're a Spanish speaking therapist or student or prospective student, check out Fisio SSN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That's the community of trying to unite Spanish speaking therapists, students, and those who want to get in the field, to have that group in unity. And eventually the idea is to broaden that out more into healthcare and how to stay in touch and connect, and try to help serve the Spanish speaking community and those who are interested in learning Spanish. Because we also give lessons on a monthly basis, and are soon to start mentorship and things like that as well, through that community. So those are some ways to reach out. And then my email, Gustavo.martinez733@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you, Gus.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Oh,